It's all we thought about when we ran out into the night and made buzzing noises, waving our flashlights around like they were lightsabers. Gsh, gsh. Unless you were a kid when there were already cool lightsaber toys, then that must have been nice. Whether it was a desire to be one of the last Jedi Knights or a smooth space pirate or a really menacing bounty hunter with a cool helmet and a problematic backpack, we wanted to go to a galaxy far, far away. Of course, it's all made up. We're not crazy. Aside from visiting a theme park, the only way we can be a part of Star Wars is to get cast in Star Wars, which might be easier said than done. Let's look at some of the rules one has to follow as a cast member of Star Wars. There's a lot not to like about sand. It's coarse, it's rough, and it's irritating. Oh, and of course, it gets everywhere. Plus, when you complain about it, a bunch of fans make fun of you for years, even though it got you the girl, so scoreboard. Chances are, if you get cast in Star Wars, you're gonna have more than a few of your own complaints about sand. For as much as Star Wars has always been about special effects, there are some effects that are easier to get from a location. Star Wars has so many influences, you can almost form a personality test based on what it is someone thinks Star Wars ripped off. One of those persistent and clear influences was Dune, which, as the title suggests, takes place in a place with lots of sand dunes. Spoilers. As a result, Star Wars takes place on Tatooine and Jakku, both desert planets. Rather than living on a set in London, Luke's childhood home resides in Tunisia, where as a cast member you'd have to spend more than one night. It's not clear where the 9th installment will take us, but director J.J. Abrams has commented on the quality a good location can bring to a scene, so more than a few overnight bags had to be packed. There are always going to be people who will look with disdain at the new Star Wars as not the Star Wars they grew up with. But then there's the rest of the fans who anticipate every new chapter with growing impatience. Just like shaking the boxes under the Christmas tree, the urge to spoil the secret without spoiling the secret is just too much to resist. Fans exist in a constant state between not wanting to have the movie spoiled and looking to spoil it by seeking out every leak and dropped hint and theory video to try and guess what's going to happen next. But those big surprises are part of what makes Star Wars so cool. If we had found out from anyone other than Darth Vader that he was Luke's father, it just wouldn't be the same. We're just gonna go ahead and guess if you're watching a Star Wars video, you already know that. If not, super sorry. So that means that some extraordinary efforts have been made to keep the secrets. In fact, in the famous "I am your father" scene, no one knew what was going to happen. In fact, most of the cast didn't find out until the movie premiered. By now, even the most casual fan of movies knows about the dreaded press junket. It's how all those local movie shows manage to get all those big celebrity interviews, and why they all look exactly the same, with the star sitting in front of a red curtain, a poster of the movie, and maybe a fern. They're notoriously grueling as the stars sit through a rotating cast of movie show hosts, asking roughly the same questions over and over again, and pretending to have playful patter. Meanwhile, publicists are running around trying to milk the best drop quotes from reviewers. It's bad enough for stars of a blockbuster to have to sit through a press junket, but Star Wars is not only a phenomenon, it's now a Disney-owned phenomenon. Not only that, but the fire that Star Wars helped light is now blazing inferno of geek culture with its own demands. It's not just the junkets, it's now events like San Diego Comic-Con that takes place every July at the center of the geek universe. Then there's the annual Disney Love Fest D23, with even more panels and events. But you're not done yet, no. There's also Star Wars Celebration, which is not an annual event, but a periodic one. There's an old rule in Hollywood, a bit of advice that ultimately people don't follow to their own peril. A film set is controlled chaos with a small army of people with many moving parts, all trying to capture a few seconds at a time, that perfect shot that can be cut together with all the other perfect shots to make it look like it happened all at once. In order to do that, you don't want to introduce too many chaotic elements into an already chaotic situation. Nothing can be more chaotic than a bored child who doesn't understand that the production is paying $1,000 a minute just to be on set. Unless you've worked on Star Wars, then the rule becomes never work with children, animals, or robots. Robots are delicate things still, and so much can go wrong, and is most likely to do right after the assistant director yells action. And now you're sitting around waiting for the effects crew to figure out why the arm won't arm. One of the things they say about Star Wars that it's also true about movie making is that it's a lot of hurry up and wait. Trucks are unloaded, lights are built, cameras are set, tents are put up, and then you wait. Once you get your precious first shot, you also have to move the camera to the other side, which also involves moving the lights again. The background has to be moved offset, but kept track of because most of them are going to be background in a new shot. A second team of people who kind of look like the actors, or first team come in to be something for the grips and electricians to aim lights at. Then the second team is pulled off and the first team comes in and wardrobe and makeup come in and fix all the mistakes. The script supervisor or continuity team comes in to make sure that thing is on the left again, and you get to shoot half the scene all over again. And when you're done with that, they shoot you on the other side. Maybe you'll get that done before lunch. Yeah, right. And on top of that, all the elaborate costumes and makeup, and you're looking at some pretty long days. Back when Star Wars A New Hope was being filmed, there wasn't really such a thing as CGI. In fact, there really wasn't such a thing as most of the special effects. There were only a handful of people who knew how to make miniatures, and a lot of the technology used to make everything look like it was taking place in the same frame had to be invented. The original Star Wars was a combination of classic movie effects and some new ones that the crews at the fledgling Industrial Lights and Magic had to make up on the spot. In a pre-CGI world, the blue screen was used because it was reduced to a black and white negative. A small spectrum of blue would end up clear on film stock. Green became the standard for computers because it was easier for computers to isolate. As special effects technology has evolved, not every advancement has been greeted with open arms. Some fans have derided modern sci-fi as well as Star Wars as relying too heavily on digital effects. The reality is a combination of both practical and digital effects, but it does mean you're reacting to a world you have no idea what it might look like. Even the real things can become something else, like porgs in The Last Jedi, which were drawn over the puffins that the crew couldn't shoot around. One of the things that really gives Star Wars its unique feel is a richly populated world that is constructed within it. Entire mythos have been built around the one-shot characters mingling around in the background of just the Cantina scene in A New Hope. The character team pulled out all the stops to create a menagerie of aliens. In order to make an alien, it sure takes a lot, both costumes, prosthetics, and makeup. That means there's an entire team of people aliening up just about everyone who appears on screen. Jerome St. John Blake played 7 different latexed-up characters in the prequels, according to an interview with CNET. When he tried to elicit sympathy from the prosthetic artist, the artist pointed out that it took him 3 months to make the prosthetic in the first place, so quit your whining, pal. Star Wars is made up of alien worlds and revolves around an order that taps into the very essence of the universe and manipulates that order to give them superpowers. And their chief rivals are a different order that manipulates the same energy, but in a bad way. At least that's what the Jedi say it is. During the original trilogy, there were only 5 Force users. There's the 2 Jedi Masters, Obi Wan Kenobi and Yoda, the 2 members of the Sith, Darth Vader and his master Palpatine, and the 1 apprentice they're all fighting over, Luke Skywalker. That's because the Jedi were all but over in the original trilogy. In the prequels, however, we were introduced to a thriving Jedi Order, and with that comes the different Jedi fighting styles. Now there's even a Jedi fighting style if you're not a Jedi, demonstrated in Rogue One by Donnie Yen. Donnie Yen is already a terrestrial martial artist, but for Star Wars he had to make a new one up, for a world with blasters, lightsabers, and the Force. That's the challenge for anyone who fights in a galaxy far, far away. They also have to come up with a fighting style for a galaxy far, far away. For some of the characters, it's not only when you're fighting someone when you have to come up with an alien way of doing things. If you're a background alien, maybe you have to come up with 1 or 2 individual moments to make you look particularly alien. But then there are the aliens that are not only in just about every movie, but is also one of the most beloved characters in the entire franchise without ever having uttered an intelligible word. Not that it's hard to understand what he's saying most of the time, even without Han Solo translating for him. You know, like let the Wookie win. When Peter Mayhew stepped out of the Chewbacca fursuit for good after The Force Awakens, Jonas Suamatu had to take over the giant furball role. That meant that he also had to go through a Chewbacca boot camp to learn all the alien moves and mannerisms that Mayhew had created over the decades, as the Millennium Falcon's co-pilot and mechanic. So what makes complaining about sand one of the subjects of ridicule, but whining to his uncle about his plans to go to the Tashi station to get power converters a legend? Why does the wide-eyed child Anakin get so much grief while Wicket is remembered so fondly? Who really knows? A lot of it comes down to timing and fate. There were 16 years between Return of the Jedi and The Phantom Menace, and 10 years between Revenge of the Sith and The Force Awakens. That's just long enough for the people who grew up on one series to become adults, who have all the blind spots for their trilogy, and all the critiques of the new one. Everyone who has been in Star Wars has become a Star Wars actor, even if they had a long distinguished career before or after Star Wars. For some, like Mark Hamill, the role almost buried them, until they found new outlets like Hamill's second life as a voiceover artist and the best ever Joker. Yeah, I said it. You want to fight about it? Regardless, being in Star Wars means that you're both responsible for ruining someone's childhood, or so they'll tell you. and for making someone else's. That's just some of the responsibilities of taking up a role in a galaxy far, far away. What do you think? Still worth it? What would you give up to have Star Wars on your IMDb? Let us know in the comments, and while you're there, why not hit that subscribe button? It's all you have to do to get the latest videos in your inbox. Thanks for watching.